I was the quintessential heroine of a tragic romance, bound by a plot that demanded I endure unthinkable suffering. My very essence, my bone marrow was extracted, my kidney cruelly harvested, all for the sake of the white moonlight, the male lead's supposed true love. I was destined to be relentlessly tormented, only to eventually forgive my tormentor, the male lead, and supposedly live happily ever after with him. But in a stark, blinding flash of clarity I awoke. Not from a dream but from the insidious script that controlled my life, just as Ethan, the second male lead, forcibly confined me, determined to keep me from the male lead. Ethan, his face a mask of desperate resolve, held a pair of cold handcuffs. "Even if you despise me, Eleanor," he vowed, his voice strained, "I won't let you go." A surge of defiance, a lightning bolt of sheer, unadulterated will, coursed through me. I snatched the handcuffs from his bewildered grasp, clicked them around my own wrists, fastening myself to the sturdy headboard. Then, with a flourish that felt both liberating and insane, I flung the key from the open window, watching it arc into the unknown. "3 meals a day, please," I declared, a mischievous glint in my eyes, "and I prefer spicy food." Ethan, bless his persistent soul, watched me like a hawk for 3 long days. Only then, with a hesitant sigh, did a sliver of belief flicker in his eyes that I genuinely had no intention of leaving. And who could blame him for his skepticism? My devotion to Arthur was legendary, a well-known, perhaps even infamous, tale within our social circles. Eleanor Wright, the esteemed heiress of the powerful Wright Corporation, had inexplicably fallen for a penniless nobody. For him, I had willingly severed the deepest ties to my family, sacrificing everything I had known. And to compound the absurdity, I had even come to accept his white moonlight, Chloe, the woman he ostensibly loved but couldn't have. "I'm not truly trying to imprison you here, Eleanor," Ethan finally said, his voice laced with resignation. I just wanted you to calm down, to think clearly." The Davies and Wright families had always been inextricably linked. Ethan and I had practically grown up together, our childhoods a shared tapestry of laughter and familiar comfort. Our families had long intended for us to become engaged after college graduation, a future neatly laid out before us. But then, during my university years, I had fallen inexplicably, irrevocably, head over heels for Arthur. Everything initially seemed normal until Arthur's white moonlight returned. Chloe, it turned out, was gravely ill, in desperate need of a bone marrow transplant. Arthur had pleaded with me, his voice a desperate whisper. He'd assured me that a bone marrow transplant would cause me no lasting harm, yet it held the power to save Chloe's life. Having been sheltered and pampered my entire life, I had never undergone any kind of surgery. The thought alone filled me with a deep, unsettling fear. When Ethan learned of Arthur's request, a terrible fear had seized him. Fearing I would, in a moment of emotional recklessness, sign away my life, he had rushed to confine me, to keep me safe from my own impulsive heart. I knew even then the depth of his good intentions. He had suffered immensely these past 2 years, all for me. Arthur had always disliked Ethan, and so, to please Arthur, I had dutifully severed all ties with Ethan. Driven by the unseen forces of that wretched plot, I had uttered countless cruel words to Ethan, words designed to wound and push him away. Yet, he had persisted, time and again, attempting to rescue me from the precipice. "Eleanor," he'd reasoned, his voice gentle but firm, "from the smallest scrape, your parents would be frantic with worry. A bone marrow donation is a monumental decision. At the very least, you should discuss it with them." "I won't donate," I stated, the words firm and clear, a surprising resolve in my own voice. He stared at me, astonished, clearly having never anticipated such a decisive rejection from me. Then a profound sigh of relief escaped him, deflating his tense shoulders. "I'm just glad you've come to your senses," he said, a genuine smile gracing his lips. "Don't worry, I'll ensure Miss Chloe finds a suitable match." Before he could finish, Ethan's phone vibrated urgently, a sharp, insistent ring that cut through the quiet room. I glanced at the caller ID, Arthur. This, I knew, couldn't be his first call. Ethan's hand instinctively moved, a practiced motion, to press the hang-up button. I reached out, stopping his hand. "Let me take this one," I said, a strange anticipation bubbling within me. Ethan's expression immediately tensed, a flicker of concern in his eyes. I answered the call, my voice clear and unwavering. "Arthur, I stated, leaving no room for doubt. We're breaking up. Ethan froze, his hand still suspended in the air. On the other end of the line, Arthur too seemed to freeze, a sudden stunned silence. He clearly thought I was merely throwing a tantrum over Chloe, and he began to coax me, his voice a practiced bomb of soothing words. Eleanor, darling, has Chloe's situation put too much pressure on you? He purred. Don't worry, my love. Just a few days ago, the hospital actually called to say they'd found a suitable match. I'm your boyfriend, remember? I would never force you into anything. I let out a harsh, disbelieving laugh. A suitable match all along, and you conveniently forgot to mention it until I broke up with you? Now you play the magnanimous boyfriend. Don't misunderstand, Arthur, I stated, my voice devoid of emotion. I simply don't like you anymore. Goodbye. According to the novel's original plot, I would have, under Chloe's persistent badgering and feigned fragility, agreed to the donation, completely oblivious that the bone marrow was merely the first step in her ruthless plan. Her ultimate horrifying goal was, in fact, my kidney. Now that her initial scheme had been thwarted, I knew she wouldn't give up easily. I hung up and Ethan remained frozen, still processing the seismic shift in my demeanor. I waved a hand in front of his stunned face. I'm hungry, I declared, a playful glint in my eyes. Spicy chicken noodles, please. I'll make them right away, he blurted out, springing to his feet and heading towards the kitchen. He paused at the doorway, poking his head back in. Everything's sorted now, right? You're not leaving, are you? I reached into the bedside drawer, pulled out the familiar handcuffs, and with practiced ease, clicked them shut around my wrists once more. Broke up, nowhere to go, I declared, a mischievous smile playing on my lips. You tied me up, so you're responsible for me. I settled into a few days of unaccustomed tranquility, a peaceful lull before the inevitable storm. Arthur, as expected, came knocking. He likely assumed my earlier pronouncement was just a childish tantrum, never expecting me, the famously clingy Eleanor, to actually remain out of contact for so long. He demanded I leave with him. I simply refused. Eleanor, darling, enough of this drama, all right? He sighed, his voice laced with manufactured weariness. I'm already exhausted, juggling my duties, caring for Chloe at the hospital, and constantly worrying about you. Can't you be a little more considerate? Why are you worrying about me? I countered, my voice flat. We're no longer together, Arthur. I had never, in all our years together, spoken to him with such cold detachment. He visibly choked on his words, momentarily stunned into silence. Eleanor, right, he spat, his face reddening. I never took you for this kind of person. Have you always secretly despised my background? Yes, Arthur, I confirmed, my gaze unwavering. I do despise it. Fine, fine, excellent, he hissed, his voice dripping with venom. I sincerely hope you don't live to regret this. I simply rolled my eyes. Time is precious, Arthur. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. With less than a week remaining until the start of my junior year, I knew I had to immerse myself in catching up on all the classes I had foolishly neglected because of Arthur. After a week of burning the midnight oil, tirelessly poring over textbooks and notes, I finally caught up. I walked into the classroom, stifling a weary yawn, feeling both accomplished and utterly drained. The moment I stepped through the door, every head in the classroom swiveled. A wave of hushed whispers rippled through the room, punctuated by furtive glances in my direction. Lily, my best friend, caught my eye and subtly gestured towards my phone. I hadn't dared to turn on my phone all week, desperate to minimize distractions. Now, as I opened WeChat, Lily's chat icon glowed with 10 unread messages. I tapped on them, and the first message was a link to a post on the university forum. It began, unmasking the persona of a renowned violin prodigy and heiress, and her sudden downfall. As everyone knows, the so-called genius violinist, an heiress of impeccable lineage, inexplicably fell for a penniless boy. They dated for 2 years, during which time it was widely rumored that she was bankrolling the medical expenses for the boy's white moonlight. Commenter L. Can the original poster please spill some tea we don't already know? My poor goddess, such a hopeless romantic. OP. Hold on, dear readers, for there's a twist. Recently, the white moonlight's condition took a drastic turn for the worse. She came to the university herself, desperate for help, and even knelt before the heiress. Yet, she was callously rejected. And then, the boy himself went to plead with the heiress, only to discover her residing in another man's home. And to add insult to injury, the heiress herself openly admitted to despising the boy's humble background. Commenter L. No way. What was the point of cultivating that saintly persona for all these years? No photos, no proof. I'm calling this a baseless rumor. The original poster then chillingly provided the evidence. A photograph of Chloe kneeling before me, her face contorted in an expression of heart-wrenching anguish, on the verge of tears. And a video clip taken from a meticulously chosen angle showing me at Ethan's doorstep, coldly admitting my disdain for Arthur's status. The mastermind behind this meticulously orchestrated smear campaign was, without a shadow of a doubt, Arthur and Chloe. Commenter L. I truly never would have thought she was this kind of person. She always seemed so kind and approachable. Who knew she was playing such dirty games behind the scenes? By the way, who was that guy? Couldn't see his face clearly, but he looked pretty handsome. Commenter L. Just playing with people, that's what rich people do. They don't treat others like human beings. They just put on a performance and hordes of people fall over themselves, praising how kind and innocent they are. Now who's the truly naive one? Commenter L. Everyone. The most terrifying revelation isn't just about crafting a deceptive persona or two-timing. It's the blatant disregard for human life. I actually saw the white moonlight on campus just recently. She was so pale, but even then she was gently feeding a stray kitten. How can such a compassionate soul be forced to pay the price for a rich girl's cruel games? Commenter L. Exactly. The cost of one of her handbags could feed an ordinary person for a month, and she's still this tight-fisted? I bet that breakup with her family was just a charade to legally reduce her spending. The remaining comments spiraled into a collective lament about Chloe's supposed plight, with various anecdotes of people encountering the pitiful ailing girl. I closed my phone, the screen a mirror reflecting my grimace. Lily peered at me, her face etched with worry. Are you okay, Eleanor? She asked, her voice hushed. We don't know who posted it, but you haven't responded in 3 days, and everyone thinks you're guilty by your silence. I had anticipated their machinations, of course. I knew the depths of their depravity, the calculating nature of that vile duo. In the original plot, Arthur had only approached me for my family's wealth, a cold, calculated strategy devised by him and Chloe. They would feign a romance using my funds to cover Chloe's exorbitant medical bills. Later, when I had severed ties with my family and could no longer provide the substantial sums they demanded, Chloe had urged Arthur to find a new, wealthier target. But Arthur, it seemed, had grown a little too fond of me, a little too reluctant to let me go. It was then that Chloe, sensing Arthur's burgeoning affection for me, had cunningly engineered a scheme to force me into donating my kidney to her. Arthur, riddled with a manufactured guilt, chose to marry me, but my body, ravaged by the forced donations, had succumbed to a severe illness, and I had died tragically at the age of 30. Arthur, with my inheritance, had then fled abroad with his white moonlight, and my parents, consumed by grief and anger over my ill-fated marriage to Arthur, had fallen gravely ill themselves. They had been sent to a sanatorium abroad, and in my final dying moments I had never seen them again. This forum tactic, while not particularly clever, was undeniably effective. My life at university, once vibrant and unburdened, became a landscape of subtle, yet pervasive hostility. In the cafeteria, as I approached the serving line, a sharp voice cut through the air. This is a place for ordinary people, someone sneered. Not for a high and mighty young lady like her. Yeah, just putting on airs, another chimed in loud enough for me to hear. What are you saying? Lily retorted, her voice rising in indignation. Say it louder if you dare. I gently pressed her arm, shaking my head slightly, urging her to desist. My usual seat in the cafeteria became an island of isolation, a stark, uncomfortable vacuum that no one dared to breach. Lily, still simmering with indignation, gnawed on her chopsticks. You always went out of your way to help them, Eleanor. You treated them to countless meals. Now they're swayed by a few malicious words and ostracize you? They're nothing but ungrateful opportunists. I continued to eat my meal, surprisingly calm amidst the storm of whispers and judging glances. Eleanor, I truly admire your composure, Lily said, her voice dropping. Aren't you going to explain yourself on the forum? Of course, I had no intention of explaining anything. My senior year held a crucial violin competition, a gateway to the national team. In the original plot, my entanglement with that scumbag and his vile accomplice had cost me that opportunity. I had to resolve them definitively. Before the competition, if I continued to remain silent, Chloe would interpret it as weakness, as an invitation to press harder. And when she realized that the so-called heiress could be so easily vanquished by her petty schemes, what depths of depravity would she sink to next? Sure enough, after 3 days of my deliberate silence, Chloe, emboldened by my apparent lack of retaliation, launched her next offensive. A new video surfaced on the university forum. In the video, Chloe, clad in a pale hospital gown, sat propped up in a stark white bed. "Hello everyone, I'm Chloe Evans," she began, her voice a thin, reedy whisper. "Regarding the recent discussions, I just wanted to clarify. Eleanor has helped me so much these past few years. She's truly a good person. Thank you all for your concern, and I just hope no one hurts her." Before she could finish, a violent, hacking cough seized her, racking her frail body. The video camera wobbled, then a familiar male voice, laced with feigned concern, spoke from off-screen. "You're too weak, Chloe. I told you didn't need to film this. I could have typed out a message for you just as easily." It was Arthur. The camera then panned slowly, deliberately, to Chloe's hand. It was alarmingly pale, crisscrossed with a dense spiderweb of tiny dark needle marks, testament to prolonged medical treatment. I just don't want Eleanor to be hurt because of me," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "She clearly refused to donate bone marrow, and you're still so concerned for her?" Arthur's voice cut in, tinged with a subtle manipulative edge. "If you had received the donation, you wouldn't be in this state now." "No, stop," Chloe interjected weakly. "Please stop. I respect Eleanor's choice." The video faded to black. I had to give it to Chloe. Her performance was nothing short of Oscar-worthy. If she truly intended to clarify, why wait until the storm had barely subsided? No, she waited until the controversy had almost faded, until people were beginning to forget, only then to resurface and remind everyone that I, Eleanor Wright, was indeed the villain. Predictably, a fresh wave of public condemnation erupted, targeted squarely at me. In class, a professor asked why I hadn't submitted an assignment. I calmly stated that I had, but the class representative, a student named Olivia, flatly contradicted me, claiming she had no record of it. Given my past habit of skipping classes and neglecting assignments for the sake of my relationship, the professor naturally assumed I was lying. I glanced at Olivia. She met my gaze with a defiant, self-righteous stare, as if she were the purest embodiment of justice in the world. A murmur rippled through the classroom as Arthur arrived, every student's face alight with the thrill of impending drama. "Did you witness me cheating, Arthur?" His hypocrisy was palpable. I couldn't even bring myself to meet his eyes, my gaze dismissive. Arthur visibly winced, publicly silenced, and his face took on a displeased pallor. "Eleanor, how did you become like this?" he said, his voice laced with feigned sorrow. "Have you been corrupted by that other boy? Even though we've broken up, I still hope for your well-being. Please just apologize to the professor, and don't cheat again." His performance was predictably highly effective. "Arthur is truly a good person," someone whispered. "Even after she cheated on him, he's still defending her." "Exactly," another chimed in. "So gentle, unlike Eleanor, who's utterly shameless, doing wrong and refusing to admit it." I let out a soft, contemptuous snort. This man's acting skills were truly formidable. Just then the professor re-entered the classroom. "Quiet down, everyone," he announced. "The results of the cheating accusation against a certain student are in. After a thorough investigation, it has been confirmed that the student answered independently, and there was no instance of cheating." "How is that possible?" Olivia shrieked, disbelief contorting her face. "Are you questioning the integrity of the proctoring committee, Miss Olivia?" the professor asked, his gaze pointedly fixed on her. "I hope certain students will base their actions on facts and refrain from disrupting classroom order due to personal emotions." Olivia's face drained of all color. I offered Olivia a small knowing smile. After the previous missed homework incident, I had already gone to the professor's office and meticulously clarified the situation. If she still wanted to cause trouble, then she had only herself to blame. The professor left and Arthur, too, looked visibly awkward. While this particular incident was a mistake, he stammered, trying to regain some footing, it was only because your previous study habits were so lackadaisical. Everyone was just looking out for you, Eleanor. I sat up straight, resting my chin on my hand, my gaze unwavering as I looked at him. But wasn't I skipping class to take care of Chloe for you? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence. You said you needed to attend every lecture, that you needed that scholarship, while my family had enough money that I didn't need to worry so much about my grades. So you made me skip class to take care of her. Have you forgotten that so quickly, Arthur? At these words, the hushed whispers ceased entirely. Every student in the classroom turned to Arthur, their gazes shifting from pity to a dawning suspicion. Arthur's face flushed a deep crimson. I don't know what you're talking about, he mumbled, already turning towards the door. I'm leaving. Did you have something to tell me, Arthur? I called out, my voice deliberately innocent. He merely shook his head, avoiding my eyes. Of course he did. Chloe, after waiting so long for me to bend, must have been furiously pressuring Arthur to come and persuade me. She had already realized she wasn't the sole occupant of Arthur's affections. That, more than anything, would drive her to secure my kidney as quickly as possible. The former me, even when I managed to voice a refusal, would invariably be swayed by Chloe's tearful pleas and Arthur's manipulative persuasion. So she naturally assumed I was easily manipulated, believing that public opinion could effortlessly force me to bow to her will. She was profoundly, utterly wrong. With exams finally behind me, I could afford a brief respite from the academic grind. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick message to Ethan. Could you come home with me this weekend? 6 months prior, my parents had discovered the extent of my academic neglect and my relentless efforts to care for Chloe on Arthur's behalf. They had been furious, their disappointment a palpable weight. Realizing I was spiraling down a dangerous path, they had secretly approached Arthur for a conversation. I never learned the specifics of that conversation, but Arthur's sullen expression for days afterward told its own story. Fueled by his silent resentment, I had, in turn, erupted into a furious argument with my parents, packed my bags and moved out. I hadn't returned home since. Now, a wave of nervous apprehension washed over me, and the thought of facing them alone was daunting. I wanted Ethan to come with me. Since childhood, he had always possessed an uncanny ability to charm my parents, to lighten any mood. With him there, the atmosphere wouldn't be nearly as strained. Ethan didn't reply immediately. He was a senior now, deeply immersed in his internship at the Davies Group. It was perfectly understandable that he might not have seen my message. I packed my bag, intending to head to his place and wait for him. My phone, resting on the table, suddenly buzzed to life. I glanced at the caller ID. Ethan. Finished with work? I asked, picking up. I was just about to head to your place. Eleanor, he said, his voice laced with a mixture of urgency and concern. I'm coming to pick you up now. We need to go straight to your parents' house. We can talk when I get there. Ethan's tone held a distinct edge of worry and anxiety. Why home now? His cryptic urgency left me thoroughly confused. By the time I had gathered my things and descended the stairs, Ethan was already waiting by the door, his posture tense. I opened the car door. Let's make a quick stop at the mall first, I suggested brightly. I haven't bought anything for Mom and Dad yet. It's been so long. I saw this gorgeous bracelet last time. I know Mom would love it. Ethan let out a soft sigh. Eleanor, he began, his voice hesitant. I need to tell you something. Please try not to panic, okay? A cold premonitory dread suddenly seized my heart. Your father, Mr. Wright, he stated, his gaze fixed on the road. He collapsed this morning and was rushed to the hospital. What? I gasped, my voice sharp with fear. Why? What happened? Is it because I upset him? The vivid, agonizing memory of my father clutching his chest in distress, a scene from the original plot, flashed before my eyes. Ethan immediately reassured me. Don't worry, Eleanor. It's just a minor issue. He'll be fine very soon. My father had indeed been angered, but not by me as I had feared. Ethan explained that just yesterday, as my father arrived at the Wright Corporation building, he was ambushed by a swarm of reporters, cameras flashing like strobe lights. Then a pale, emaciated girl, clad in a hospital gown, had dramatically rushed forward and knelt directly before him. Tears streaming down her face, she had sobbed, pleading with my father to save her life. My father, while aware of Chloe's existence, had never actually met her. Ever the gentleman, he had stepped forward to help Chloe to her feet, intending to inquire about the commotion. Unexpectedly, Chloe had collapsed dramatically, fainting directly into my father's arms. And then, I demanded, my hand instinctively tightening around the strap of my bag. Then the very next morning, Ethan continued, his voice grim. The news was plastered with photos of Chloe kneeling before both you and your father, painting the right father and daughter as cold-blooded, heartless individuals, utterly devoid of compassion and utterly disregarding human life. The company's stock had taken an immediate hit. My father, realizing Chloe's true identity and seeing the calculated malice behind her act, had been consumed by a wave of furious indignation. It was then that he had collapsed. In the original narrative, our convoluted drama had never, to my knowledge, directly involved my parents. Perhaps, having found her attempts to manipulate me personally thwarted, Chloe had simply redirected her malicious attention towards my father. Don't worry too much, Eleanor, Ethan reassured me. Your father has already woken up. The doctors say it's nothing serious, and he can go home to rest soon. I let out a shaky sigh of relief then, as if struck by a sudden realization, pulled out my phone and opened the university forum. Sure enough, the news of my father's collapse, complete with the manipulated photos, had been transplanted to the forum verbatim, now trending with alarming speed. Hundreds of comments, each more vitriolic than the last, had already piled up. Heavens, one comment read. Like father, like daughter. Chloe is truly too naive, thinking this would somehow move those cold-blooded, heartless people. The Wright Corporation is practically the wealthiest in the city, another fumed. Why are they unwilling to spend such a small amount of money? So utterly devoid of social responsibility. Actually, though, a dissenting voice chimed in. The Wright Corporation does extensive charity work every year. They even established a foundation specifically for children with rare diseases. The commenter above is clearly Eleanor's lapdog, someone quickly retorted. Who doesn't know that corporate charity is just a tax write-off? It's a convenient way to save money and gain a good reputation. Ethan gently took my phone, the screen instantly going dark. I'll have someone handle these forum posts, he said, his voice firm. Don't let their words get to you. I shook my head. No, don't handle them yet, I corrected him. Still entering my voice. I originally intended to resolve this slowly, meticulously, but they dared to target my parents. That, I absolutely cannot tolerate. Not only should we not delete them, we need to ensure the heat intensifies. The half-hour drive passed quickly, the tension in the car almost palpable. I got out, my movements stiff with a nervous energy. The moment I stepped through the front door, my mother's familiar voice drifted from the living room. Who else could it be? She was saying, a note of fond exasperation in her voice. It must be Ethan. That boy is always running over here. His mother even complains to me, saying we've practically adopted him as our own son. If only Ethan were our son-in-law, she mused softly, a wish unspoken but clear. I glanced at Ethan. He cleared his throat lightly, faint flush on his cheeks. You weren't home, Eleanor, he explained, his eyes meeting mine briefly. I just wanted to help take care of things for you. His words, simple as they were, painted a picture of us. A shared home that warmed a forgotten corner of my heart. My parents, hearing the slight commotion, turned from the living room, their eyes widening as they saw me standing in the doorway. Dad, Mom, I whispered, my voice thick with emotion. I'm back. I'm so sorry for causing you so much worry. My mother's eyes immediately welled up. Oh, Eleanor, she choked out, rushing forward to embrace me. Just glad you're back. Darling. So glad you're back. My father, ever the stoic, turned his head, his voice gruff with suppressed anger. What kind of man did you choose, Eleanor? To let those women from outside walk all over you, and he just plays dead? Don't listen to your father, dear, my mother interjected, stroking my hair. He's just worried about you. That woman looks like nothing but trouble. Your father was afraid you'd get hurt out there. Dad, Mom, I declared, my voice firm and clear. I've broken up with Arthur. My father was right. Arthur's greatest skill was, indeed, playing dead. With public opinion raging, he dared neither to clarify the truth for me, nor to openly sever ties with Chloe. I was fixated on the two women, while he, the true instigator, had gracefully vanished into the shadows, a master of evasion. Little did they know, if not for his two-timing and spineless cowardice, none of this tangled web of deceit would have ever unfolded. My family enjoyed a rare, harmonious dinner together. Afterwards, feeling a little warm, I stepped onto the balcony to catch a cool breeze. Ethan soon joined me, carrying a plate of freshly cut fruit. I turned to him. "Thank you, Ethan," I said softly, "for taking care of my parents." "Don't mention it, Eleanor," he replied, his gaze warm. "I grew up under your parents' care after all. It's the least I can do." I looked at him, truly looked at him. This was Ethan. Always the gentleman, always anticipating my needs, meticulously considering every detail. The most outrageous thing he'd ever done was perhaps kidnapping me to prevent that bone marrow donation. Truth be told, before Arthur had ever entered my life, I had always tacitly accepted our engagement. Even if I never outwardly expressed much enthusiasm, I had simply assumed that this was my path, that Ethan and I would always be together. The thought of Ethan sacrificing so much for me, believing all along that I had never truly liked him, sent a pang through my heart. Ethan, actually, My phone suddenly buzzed, interrupting my confession. I opened the message. It was Chloe. "Did you see today's news?" Her message read, sharp and demanding. "If you don't want things to get even worse, you need to show some sincerity." I swallowed the words that had been on the tip of my tongue. Business first, then matters of the heart. I sent Chloe a reply suggesting we meet to talk. The meeting place I chose was highly private, which likely made Chloe feel secure enough not to bother with too much disguise. "Eleanor," Chloe began, her voice a low purr, "have you thought things through?" I took an elegant sip of my wine. "Are you referring," I began, my voice perfectly level, "to your little stunt of deliberately arranging for someone to film you kneeling before my father and me, using it as a means to threaten me?" Chloe's eyes narrowed, a flicker of caution in their depths. "Are you wearing a wire?" she asked, her voice dropping. I spread my hands, an innocent smile on my face. "Feel free to search me. But tell me, since you're asking, did you happen to bring a recording device?" Her face flushed slightly, an unnatural flush. She picked up her own glass, downing a large gulp of wine. "Of course not," she declared, her voice a little too loud. "I told you, as long as you show sincerity, I won't cause you any more trouble. I'll trust you then." "What sincerity are we talking about, Chloe?" I pressed, my voice deceptively soft. "Money? Or my kidney? Or do you want both?" My bluntness made Chloe's face turn a furious shade of red. She gritted her teeth, drained her glass, then took a shuddering breath. "That's right," she hissed, her voice rising in a desperate crescendo. "I want both. Your family is filthy rich. You've had everything handed to you since childhood. Even with just one kidney, you'd live a perfectly comfortable life. Why should I have to suffer like this?" "So greedy," I mused aloud, a knowing smirk on my face. "Does Arthur know about all this?" Of course he didn't. He was still lost in his deluded fantasy of using my money to cure Chloe, then somehow winning me back to enjoy the benefits of having both of us. Chloe, it was clear, understood Arthur's wavering affections. That was precisely why she was so desperately eager to recover her health. Arthur, she sensed, might soon prove unreliable. "You know nothing," she spat, her voice thick with venom. "Since childhood he was my shadow, always taking care of me. When I got sick he was willing to earn money, whatever it took, to help me get better. Then he told me that you liked him. So he came up with a plan. He would pretend to date you and ask you for money. I saw your picture," she continued, her eyes glazed over. "You were wearing a ski suit, laughing wildly, so carefree. That's when I knew Arthur would definitely fall for you. Why do you have everything?" she shrieked, her voice hoarse. "I only have Arthur. And you want to steal him too. I want to make you pay the price for this." Her voice was now a raw, hysterical shriek. She was clearly a little drunk, the alcohol loosening her last inhibitions. "You get one thing straight, Chloe," I snapped, my voice sharp. "You two conspired to deceive me. I am the victim here. I may have money, but I'm not a fool to be taken advantage of." Chloe, however, was clearly beyond listening to reason. "Anyway," she slurred, her eyes wild, "you'd better get me the money, and quickly. I might not take your kidney, but you will find me one. You're rich after all." If you can't do it, I promise you I'll make you pay. Then I'll wait and see, I replied, a cold calm settling over me. I paid the bill and then, with a mischievous smile, called Arthur. Eleanor, darling, what a surprise to hear from you, he gushed, his voice oozing false charm. Are you having second thoughts? Don't worry, we can sort everything out, we can be. I cut him off, my voice flat. Chloe's had too much to drink. Come pick her up. I sent him the location, then simply walked away. The next morning my phone exploded with calls. Eleanor, get to the Right Corporation building now. Chloe is live streaming from the rooftop, threatening to jump. Pulled on my clothes, a wry smile playing on my lips as I spoke to Ethan. She's willing to go to great lengths, isn't she? But she cherishes her own life too much to actually jump. She's live streaming her accusations against you, he replied grimly. She claims you stole her boyfriend, which caused her condition to worsen, and that you refused to help her. She's even released a recording. I clicked the link. The recording began and my own voice, dripping with disdain, rang out. You get one thing straight, Chloe. I may have money, but I'm not a fool to be taken advantage of. She had, as expected, recorded and cleverly edited our conversation. Is that her only trick? Regardless of the truth, if she jumps, the Right Corporation will undoubtedly suffer. I rushed to the Right Corporation building. By the time I arrived, firefighters had already inflated a giant air cushion below. Reporters, a hungry pack, immediately recognized me and swarmed, trapping me in a tight circle. Miss Wright, one reporter thrust a microphone into my face. Did you really seduce Miss Chloe's boyfriend? Is this truly just a cruel game for people like you, as Miss Chloe claims? Miss Wright, another demanded. If Miss Chloe jumps, will you bear responsibility? The surrounding crowd, realizing who I was, erupted into a chorus of jeers and curses. Heartless wretch, someone screamed. She'll do anything with her family's money. I heard Chloe even knelt to her at the university, and she remained unmoved. Is there no justice left? Send her to prison. To prison. To prison. The crowd chanted, growing more agitated. Someone hurled a rotten egg which splattered against my coat, and the crowd surged forward, a chaotic, furious tide. Just then, a strong hand firmly grasped mine, pulling me protectively behind him. How can anyone still like a person like that? I heard someone shout. They must be utterly blind. I looked at Ethan's determined face, shielding me from the mob, and a pang of deep emotion, a mix of gratitude and something more, tightened my chest. He had always, without fail, stepped forward when I needed him most, yet he had never asked for anything in return. I had been sheltered and protected by my parents and by Ethan for so many years. It was time for me to truly grow up, to take control. I gently pushed Ethan aside, stepping forward to face the throng of reporters myself. Thank you all for your concern, I announced, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the din. I will be holding a press conference at 3 o'clock this afternoon to address all related matters. I promise to provide everyone with a satisfactory explanation. The press conference hall was packed to the gills, a teeming mass of reporters, cameramen, and curious onlookers. Numerous online influencers had set up their phones, live streaming the event to milk the trending topic for views. All right, families, one influencer chirped into her camera. Today we're here to witness how the heartless Wright heiress will grovel and beg for forgiveness. Ethan started to rise, intending to have them removed, but I gently pressed his arm, holding him back. The more people who witnessed this press conference, the better. The larger the audience, the harder Chloe's fall would be. Chloe also made an appearance. After witnessing the sheer chaos outside the building, she had, predictably, been easily persuaded to descend from the rooftop. She was never truly going to jump, after all. She was leaning heavily on Arthur, her eyes red and puffy, cultivating an air of utter fragility. Arthur glanced at me, his expression a mixture of guilt and hesitation. But then Chloe let out a delicate sniffle, and he quickly refocused, murmuring words of comfort to her. The onlookers, witnessing this meticulously staged scene, grew even more indignant on Chloe's behalf, their gazes hardening against me. I cleared my throat, signaling to the assembled media that I was ready to begin. Good afternoon, everyone. I began, my voice clear and resonating through the hall. I believe you are all here today concerning the matter of Miss Chloe Evans. I would like to clarify a few points. Firstly, throughout my relationship with Mr. Arthur Davies, Both Mr. Davies and Miss Evans consistently claimed to be siblings. It was because of this fabricated relationship that I extended significant care and support to Miss Evans, even going so far as to skip my university classes to attend to her at the hospital. Here, I present 2 years' worth of payment records and corresponding hospital surveillance footage to substantiate my claims. Collective gasp rippled through the hall. Chloe and Arthur's faces, just moments before radiating feigned innocence, turned a ghastly shade of white. Secondly, Miss Evans had a suitable bone marrow match readily available long before her dramatic display at my university. Yet she chose to ostentatiously kneel before me, publicly begging for a donation, a scene so conveniently captured on camera. One must question her true intentions. Here, I have a recording of a phone call with Mr. Arthur Davies, in which he explicitly confirms the existence of this match. Chloe stared at Arthur in utter disbelief, her eyes wide with shock. Arthur in turn stared at me, his face a mask of dumbfounded horror. I suppressed a triumphant smile. Only they were allowed to record? Growing up in a family like mine, recording critical conversations was a basic, ingrained survival tactic. As for why I didn't expose them earlier, well, I didn't want to tip off the snake before the trap was fully set. Chloe didn't attend university. A ruined reputation within academic circles would have no lasting impact on her. But if the scandal escalated to a point of widespread public scrutiny, then once the truth was undeniably exposed, she would have no hope of ever recovering her standing. Thirdly, Miss Evans personally admitted to conspiring with Mr. Arthur Davies to extort money from me. She is now brazenly threatening me for a kidney. Here, I present a video recording of Miss Evans's own confession. The video played, revealing Chloe's face contorted in a grotesque mask of greed and fury, utterly devoid of the frail, delicate image she had so carefully cultivated. Even Arthur, witnessing this raw, unadulterated ugliness, visibly recoiled in his seat. He stared at Chloe with a look of profound disappointment, as if seeing her true self for the very first time. Finally, I concluded, my voice firm and authoritative, while the Wright Corporation cannot comprehend Miss Evans's malicious actions, we nonetheless respect her desire to live. Therefore, we will cover all of her future medical treatments. As for finding a matching kidney donor, that, I'm afraid, will be entirely up to Miss Evans's own fortune. The entire farce concluded with Chloe dramatically feigning a collapse, promptly being whisked away by an ambulance. The Wright Corporation's public image and mine completely reversed within a single day. Chloe, prior to her calculated encounter with me, had always come from a modest background. I was, in essence, her sole gateway into the elite circles of society. Her limited perspective, her narrow understanding of the world, left her utterly oblivious to the true workings of the upper echelons. Seeing me as an easily manipulable target, she had foolishly believed she could achieve great wealth and status through crude, amateurish schemes. Now she had well and truly shot herself in the foot. Eleanor, my father said later that evening, his face flushed with emotion, you've truly grown up. Your mother and I are incredibly proud. From now on, he continued, his voice warm with pride, I can confidently entrust the company to you. Dad, I said, a slight, helpless smile on my face, I haven't even graduated yet. It's far too early to be discussing that. Besides, I still want to pursue my violin career, more than anything. No problem, he boomed, undeterred. We still have Ethan, don't we? With Ethan by your side, I can rest easy. Ethan, hearing my father's words, looked at me with a shy, hopeful anticipation. I smiled, and under the table I secretly squeezed Ethan's hand. Dad's right, I said, meeting Ethan's gaze. I'm lucky to have Ethan. Time, as it always does, passed swiftly. The scandal surrounding Chloe had faded into distant memory. I was deeply engrossed in preparing for a crucial violin competition, just a month away when my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. Hello, Miss Wright, a woman's unfamiliar voice said. I'm Mr. Davies's new secretary. Mr. Davies has been accidentally injured and is currently at People's Hospital. The voice on the phone was indeed unfamiliar, but Ethan had mentioned recently hiring a new secretary for the Davies Group. Concerned only for Ethan's well-being, I didn't give it a second thought. I'll be there right away, I said, already grabbing my keys. My car sped towards the underground parking garage of People's Hospital. I quickly found an empty spot and pulled in. The moment I stepped out of the car, a chilling gust of wind swept behind me. My instincts screamed. I instinctively spun and Chloe, lunging from the shadows, slammed into empty air where I had been a second before. "I knew it was you," I stated, my voice calm despite the adrenaline surge. On the drive over, a sudden chilling realization had dawned on me. Ethan's new secretary was a man. The voice on the phone had been unmistakably female. I had immediately called Ethan, confirmed he was safe and sound at the office, and explained the alarming call. "Eleanor Wright," Chloe shrieked, her voice raw, her eyes burning with a terrifying madness. She had lost a shocking amount of weight, her once pretty face now gaunt and withered, a true specter of her former self. "I want you dead." My expression hardened. "Chloe," I said, my voice sharp, "I have extended you every courtesy, every mercy." "Mercy?" Chloe cackled, a wild, unhinged sound. "Since you held that pathetic press conference, Arthur stopped visiting me. He just sends money a monthly allowance. You said you'd cover my medical expenses, but there are kidney donors, plenty of them, but everyone refuses once they hear it's for me. No one is willing to give me a kidney. You are the sole cause of all my suffering." With a guttural scream, she lunged, a glinting knife appearing in her hand, aimed directly at my heart. I twisted, narrowly dodging the full force of the blow, but the razor-sharp blade still sliced deeply across my right forearm. "Eleanor!" Ethan's voice roared, laced with frantic terror, as he burst into the garage, followed closely by uniformed police officers. The police swiftly subdued the frenzied Chloe. As they dragged her away, still struggling, she cackled wildly, a terrifying, triumphant sound. "Ha ha 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 ha. I can't take your life, Eleanor. I'll take your hand instead. Aren't you a violin genius? Let's see how much of a genius you are now." Ethan's eyes fell on my right arm, where blood was already seeping in crimson rivulets between my fingers. His face, already pale, drained of all remaining color. In the hospital, a doctor meticulously bandaged my wounded arm. "Lucky you dodged just in time," the doctor remarked cheerfully. "Just superficial wounds. A little antiseptic and some bandages, and it'll heal quickly." Ethan let out a shuddering sigh of relief. He then turned to me, his expression grave. "I messaged you to be careful, to not act rashly," he chided, his voice laced with the lingering fear. "You still took that risk. What if something had actually happened to you? Don't ever play with your life like that again, Eleanor." I blinked innocently up at him, a small mischievous smile playing on my lips. "Because I knew you'd come to save me, of course. You always have an answer for everything, don't you?" Ethan said, a helpless, tender smile replacing his frown as he gently stroked my head. "Eleanor." A jarring, unwelcome voice cut through the tender atmosphere, shattering the moment. I turned, an impatient scowl on my face, to see Arthur standing in the doorway. "What do you want?" I snapped. I came to beg you," he stammered, his eyes pleading, "to let Chloe go, to withdraw the lawsuit against her." His utter shamelessness almost made me laugh out loud. "I let her go?" I scoffed, incredulous. "You need to get things straight, Arthur. I am the victim here." "She wouldn't actually kill anyone," he insisted, his voice rising defensively. "She just wanted to scare you. Besides, you're hardly injured, are you?" Ethan's face immediately darkened, his jaw clenching. Arthur visibly flinched, but he persisted, pushing past his fear. "Chloe is young, and she's battling a terminal illness," he argued, his voice desperate. "Her parents passed away when she was very young. It's completely normal for her to be a little unhinged given everything she's been through. You, Eleanor, have wanted for nothing your entire life. Just this once, can't you let her off? She can't go to jail, Eleanor." Ethan, unable to contain his rage, stepped forward and landed a swift, hard punch squarely on Arthur's jaw. "If Eleanor hadn't been quick-witted and vigilant today, Arthur, she'd be dead." Arthur stumbled backward, falling to the ground. Knowing he was in the wrong, he mumbled, almost to himself, "She was so kind when she was young. She wasn't like this. When I was 16, some thugs had me cornered at the high school gates. She, just a small girl, completely disregarding her own safety, called the police for me. She was truly kind then." A flicker of recognition, a distant memory stirred within me. Was this In Nkong Alley behind First High? I asked, my voice unexpectedly calm. And were you wearing a bright orange sweater that day? Arthur's head snapped up, his eyes wide. How? How did you know that? I suppressed a sigh. I had just gotten into First High then, and my father was at the school donating funds for the new library. On the way back, I'd simply seen someone being beaten in an alley, casually called the police, and then left. It was nothing remarkable. In truth, a part of Arthur did believe me even then. He had perhaps belatedly realized that Chloe was a petty, self-serving individual, highly unlikely to have called the police for anyone but herself. But at the time, consumed by his romantic notions, he had simply chosen to believe it was destiny. I didn't care if he believed me or not. I wanted nothing more to do with him. Regardless, I stated, my voice firm and final, I will not withdraw the lawsuit. Goodbye, Arthur. On the drive back, Ethan remained uncharacteristically silent. I glanced at him. Why so quiet? He let out a low snort. You actually knew him so early, he muttered, a hint of lingering jealousy in his voice. I'm craving dumplings, I said, looking at him with a playful smile. Otherwise, all this strong vinegar will go to waste. He turned his head away dramatically. I don't care, he grumbled. I'm still not happy. I sighed playfully. Pull over, Ethan. What for? Ethan asked, though he obediently pulled the car over to the side of the road. Are you planning to run off again? I laughed softly at his mock suspicion, then leaned over and pressed a soft kiss to his lips. Still jealous? I whispered, my lips still brushing his. If you're going to ask it like that, he murmured, his eyes twinkling, then yes, maybe still. A little. I kissed him again, a little longer this time. He unbuckled his seatbelt, leaned fully over, and pressed me gently but firmly against the car window. Let me show you, Eleanor. He whispered, his voice husky, what true sincerity means. And with that he leaned in, his lips finding mine in a kiss that promised a future far brighter than any twisted plot. In the years that followed, Arthur's academic performance plummeted. After graduation, he ended up working at a small, unremarkable company, a shadow of the ambitious future he had once envisioned. As for Chloe, she was long since incarcerated. Rumor had it that she spent her days in prison, loudly lamenting her fate and endlessly claiming she was the one who had called the police that fateful day in the alley. Her cellmates, irritated by her constant wailing, reportedly dealt with her in their own way. I went on to win the national violin competition, securing my place on the national team, my talent finally recognized without hindrance. On the night of the celebratory banquet, Ethan, ever thoughtful, found the perfect moment to propose. I watched as he slid the ring onto my finger, then gently kissed him, a quiet promise of a future finally chosen by me. It seemed, after all the twists and turns, we had still, in our own way, fulfilled the childhood promise of an engagement after graduation. On our wedding night, as I prepared for bed, my hand brushed against something familiar in the nightstand drawer. Ethan emerged from the bathroom, fresh from his shower, and his breath hitched the moment he saw me. I was wearing a silk red robe, and I had, with a familiar gesture, cuffed myself to the headboard, the key already flung from the open window. It was a truly sleepless night.